All right, Nat. We're back.
We're back. I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. I know I did. Though I didn't have a turkey for this Thanksgiving.
Listen,
it was
Nat.
a beef brisket.
Gotta be appreciative, Nat.
I am. I'm just being real. It's off the cuff.
That's true.
There was no turkey.
Okay, but let's be real. Beef brisket is better than turkey anyway. Who wants turkey?
True. But I thought you valued tradition and all.
The tradition? I do, to an extent, but I also value flavor.
Well, the church that, your home church that I went to during the break, they did have a Thanksgiving lunch.
That's true.
So there was turkey.
Yeah, what are you complaining about?
I'm not complaining. I didn't complain. I just said there was no turkey.
Yeah.
It's just what it is.
I'm going to get a text message from my brother-in-law because he's going to watch this and he's going to be like, what the heck? I liked Nat. And now he's making fun of my...
Okay, I have to point that out only because after Thanksgiving at your sister's place, your brother-in-law put on some documentary about the history of Thanksgiving food and he talked about the turkey. Now, when I was eating dinner, I was wondering, there's no turkey. Don't tell me they're cooking the turkey right now and they're going to bring it out because I'm stuffed. So there was no turkey, it was just a beef brisket. But when we were watching the documentary, I was thinking, why didn't we have the turkey? So I whispered to your mom about that, but she just goes and says it out loud, and I didn't want anyone else to hear that because it sounded unappreciative, but I was actually, why was there no turkey?
Yeah.
Just wondering.
Yeah, well, I guess we should talk about that. We had Thanksgiving break together. We were together for 2 weeks. Our best friend got married, right? Well,
your best friend.
I say because if the two of us had to pick one other person that we know, that we both equally know, it's him.
That is true.
He was our roommate.
And what's funny is how we were roommates with him first year, and then his roommates from second year came over, and of course his childhood friends were over at the wedding.
Yeah.
And no matter what, we all had the same kind of stories and opinion on him.
Yeah.
Which is it was all about, we hung out a lot until we got a girlfriend.
Yeah, and then he just left us.
Me being at the wedding is the first time I've hung out with him in a while.
Yeah, there's an alternative reality where he's on this podcast with us right now because he hung out with the boys.
Points for consistency, though, that his childhood friends, his first year roommates and second year roommates, all have the same stories.
Yeah.
Because I was in the same table with his roommates from this past year, and they were laughing at your best man speech and all, because it was also relatable. So
yeah,
it's something. Hey, but God allowed him to get married though to the one, so I guess that's points.
Yeah.
For him too.
As two single guys sitting here, it's easy for us to make fun of him for not spending time with the boys, but he's winning at life right now. I'm not gonna lie.
I can do that personally because I always tried when I was in a relationship just to spend time with the boys. So
yeah. And how did that work out for you? Where is she, Nat? Where is she?
I still got the boys no matter what. At the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, eventually the boys. I don't know. Eventually, right? You gotta find that one that you're gonna spend the rest of your life with, and the boys.
True, but why does the boys have to be disbanded?
They don't have to be disbanded, but
sounds like an inevitability. Yes, life gets in the way, kind of thing.
I mean, just by nature of how God designed marriage, you're not gonna live in the same house with the boys, but you are gonna live in the same house with your wife.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing is, the minute you get a girlfriend, this podcast is over.
No,
that's what I'm hearing.
It's not over. It's just
we're gonna have
it'll be me and her podcast.
It's gonna be the Beatles split. You're gonna find your Yoko Ono.
Yeah, just no explanation. It's just no longer Nat on the podcast. It's just some girl, and everyone's like, "What the heck?"
You're gonna have the same fate as John Lennon.
Yoko Ono. No, because I'm not a socialist.
Yeah. That's the thing about that song, Imagine. Core memory. I remember in public school, elementary, we had to sing a song for an assembly. And that was one of the songs that we had to.
Not bass.
Yeah, I know. It was so cringe because it was it was the song Imagine, actually. It was.
And you sang it, huh?
Well, I think I chose not to say the part of no religion.
Oh, yeah.
That part. But, when you're 8 years old, you just don't really you're not awakened.
You probably didn't understand what socialism was, or like what.
No, but I always like thought the Beatles was kind of overrated. This might be the
Really?
most controversial podcast. Oh yeah,
My dad
100%
loved the
overrated.
Beatles, and he never
'cause
let
your
us listen
dad's
to
a
John
Bruno,
Lennon.
so-
Well, it's not that he didn't let us; he just didn't like it. But I like the Beatles. I think I don't know. I kind of miss bands. I feel like it's all individual artists now, and it's more about like keeping up with their personal life than it is like actually about the music.
Well, it comes down to celebrity. You like their instrumentals. You may like what they contribute in terms of their work, but in terms of their personality, it's really hard to separate that because it's kind of like what inspires them to make something great that you like can come from a very sinful in a sense, like
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like the other day we had actually just recently, like I broke the news to one of our friends who's probably listening to the podcast about the song Summer of '69, which he loves so much.
Yeah.
And I told him, actually, do you know what that song really means? What it actually is about? Like, look
Yeah.
at this one line in the song, and since then hasn't listened to it since.
Okay, I feel like that's his fault. Like I feel like it's pretty obvious what that song's about.
it's one of those like you want to have plausible deniability. Like I'm not gonna research it so that I can just keep listening to it.
Yeah.
And just ignore that.
It's like,
Maybe it's a,
interesting guitar riff tunes out lyrics.
yeah, it's the guitar riffs that get you, man. So it's like,
It is. Yep.
like the Beatles, they're talented. Just that songs like Yellow Submarine, I heard that in kindergarten. Not good.
What's that one about? It's just about drug use, isn't
It
it?
is.
Yeah. Ain't nothing wrong with a little
Lucy and the Sky.
LSD.
See, Josh. This is
Just
what
kidding.
we kind of had a contention over the break, which was I called you my over spiritualized friend, but then I had to point out where's the consistency, man. How are you gonna defend the Beatles, man? And then you hear some, I don't know, Taylor Swift song, you're like, no, that's demonic.
What? I'm not defending their behavior. I'm just saying they wrote a good song. Like there's a difference between a song where they're talking about doing drugs and a song where
So do you think there's any good Taylor Swift songs?
any good Taylor Swift songs? We've talked about this before. I didn't know it was a Taylor Swift song because the first time I heard it was a cover. So I heard some dude singing Teardrops on My Guitar, and I thought it was good. And so one day I was singing that song, and Nat was like, you hate Taylor Swift. Why are you singing Taylor Swift? And I was devastated because I didn't know it was a Taylor Swift song.
Actually, it was not me. It was you and I were working together on security shift.
Yeah.
And a guy that we know, his friend, pointed that out because we heard him listening to a Taylor Swift song. And you tried to expose him. You said you only listen to him because your girlfriend is a big fan. He goes, yeah. And then he somehow he found out that like that's a song that he said, oh, how about this song? And you were like, oh yeah, right, Teardrops on My Guitar. And you're like, oh yeah, that is from Taylor Swift. I guess that's the one good song.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. I think, but that's like part of it too, is like, because now it is more about the artist and their personal life than it is what they're writing. And so like with the Beatles, like I don't really personally care or know much about them. I just think they wrote good music. But with Taylor Swift, it's like you can't just listen to her music. You have to keep up with like who she's dating, and if her boyfriend's a football guy, then you have to like his football
she's being
team.
pushed by the by Hollywood and all that. Like you can
It's
go to,
true.
You go to Walmart,
It's
you
true.
go to Target, and you can't not see like some biography of.
It's true.
Of her.
We were talking about this because everyone talks about like they treat her as if she's always been this big star, like always been this big star. She's been around for a long time, but I don't know when it was. It was just a few years ago they started pushing her as like, whoa, she's been this consistent icon throughout her entire career. And it's like, no, like for a while she fell off and people didn't know or care who she was. Like every couple years she would come out with some like hit song and people would start listening to her again and be like, oh, remember Taylor Swift? But all these people like pretend like they've like always listened to her, watched her for her entire career. Like they pretend like she's some icon or role model, but they only started marketing her as that like a few years ago.
Yeah, it's because she did the bidding to her masters, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She sold her soul, huh, Nat?
Yeah, probably. Well, actually, from what I know is that I'm not sure it was ever confirmed, but there's a theory that the reason why she got popular was because, one, her music made it up the charts, and it was said because her dad bought her album, like her first cover.
Mm-hmm.
So her first album, the dad just bought like a lot of copies of it and it bumped it up. and then that's how she got recognition. I'm not sure if that was ever confirmed, but it was
Well,
a story.
I know. She started to get big because there's like a whole thing where she sued her producer because they were making more money off her music
she
than
was
they
already
were.
big anyway.
Yeah,
back
but
then.
but you know, like the whole thing where she re-released all her music,
Yes.
so she would get royalties off of it. So I will say this, Nat, if you have to ask me, is there a Taylor Swift song you would listen to? Yes, the version that her producers make money off of, not her.
No, for real. Actually, I would not listen to her version.
I would listen.
I want to give that guy the money. 'Cause
Exactly.
He
Yeah.
has the rights to it.
Whoever that is, I don't know her but I would just listen to that out of spite. Like I would just like mute my phone and put it on in the background so that her producers make money,
Yeah.
but she doesn't.
Let's look at your Spotify rap. Well, also it sounds. I find that a lot of the times the original the re-recording is just not as good as the original. She sounds older too, so it's kind of weird. Like if you probably like break down the lyrics and it's like it's a teenager singing the song, but she doesn't sound
Okay.
like a teenager.
What's even weirder than that is the fact that she's 35 and she's still writing songs from the perspective of like a teenager. Like she's still talking about like romantic tragedy that she went through in high school, and it's like, grow up. I'm over it. You're 35 and single.
Makes money though.
She does make money, but that's the thing is it's catchy and it gets young girls like in their feelings and stuff.
I think what really propelled
I don't
her
think it's helpful to society.
to fame as well was that whole VMAs thing with Kanye West, because in 2009 she won like best female artist or something like that, and Kanye got up and says, "I'm gonna let you finish, Taylor, but Beyonce should have won for single ladies," and he just walked off.
Wait, is Beyonce the one everyone talks about like is murdering people behind the scenes? Is that her or is that someone else? That's Rihanna or someone.
I don't know.
I
know that the other day apparently like Billboard like made her like the most influential female singer.
Who was?
Beyonce. Yeah.
She's the most influential female singer?
I don't know, man. Of course I don't believe that, but
yeah. Why are we talking about Taylor Swift? I don't want to talk about Taylor Swift.
Let's talk about another female artist. Did you hear that? This is an old story. I think this is from an episode that we chose not to air, but at one point I mentioned the Lana Del Rey. You ever heard her? She kind of sings as like old Americana kind of music.
I know the name.
But she got married to some like guy in Louisiana.
Oh yeah.
He's an alligator guy or whatever or something.
Yeah.
He works at some alligator zoo or something like that, and he's some Cajun dude she marries. It's kind of based though, because she married a guy, and the guy apparently did not know who she was, so did not know that she was a famous singer at all, and she finally settled down and married some conservative dude.
There you go. There's one good thing that's happened in the world.
And the choice to conceal the fact that she was a famous singer, I don't know, for some reason I find that kind of respectable. Yeah. I may be reading too much in it, but from what I read and what I remember, I'm like, that's kind of a good ending.
Yeah, I think they kind of push that lie a lot, right? That like career, like, and people talk about it. It's really like divisive when you talk about it for women. Like career won't make you happy. A family is what's going to make you happy. But I think even generalizing that to men as well. Like you see so many like actors in Hollywood that like they have the career, they're the big Hollywood star, and yet they have like 2 divorces, bunch of like kids outside of wedlock, and like you hear them at the end of their life and they're just miserable. Like they bought into the lie. And then that's the sad part is like once you start telling yourself the lie, then you have to promote the lie to other people so that the next generation will become actors too. And it's like it's too late. You're like caught in this cycle of just nothingness.
Yeah. Well, there's a possibility, and I hope it isn't, but the possibility that, just like a lot of marriages, may not work out well. And if it didn't work out well, then she's probably going to release another album, kind of like Adele.
Oh, yeah. Adele released that album.
But for now, I will give her a clap, Good on you, good on to the best for your marriage.
Yes, because she definitely listens to our podcast, Nat.
Oh, well, we should also talk about good news sometimes, I guess.
No, it's true. We should.
So that's our female artist news for the day.
Yes, Nat. Our demographic is going to be all women after this.
Well, I looked at the statistics. Now we're like, it's about 29% female that listen to us.
29%.
I don't think we're working hard enough, Josh. I think it needs to be lower to 0. That's
You
the
want
plan
to
by
get?
December.
Why do you want to get rid of our female audience?
I don't know. I think it's funny.
It's okay. We're gonna get banned now because I hated on Taylor Swift. So you're welcome.
What we're gonna do is now talk about Spider-Man 2 for the boys.
Yes. Yes, Nat. Thank you. Spider-Man 2. Oh my gosh.
All right, Josh, take the floor.
Okay. So over break, one of the best things that ever happened was we rewatched Spider-Man 2, the original. All right, not the Amazing Spider-Man 2, not No Way Home or whatever nonsense. All right, we watched the original Spider-Man 2. All right, and it was a long time coming because 2 years ago, me and Nat watched the first one, and then we watched Spider-Man 2, and Nat said, what, it had been like 10 years, something like that, since you've seen it?
Like, growing up, he was my favorite superhero, always was, and growing up, I had the Spider-Man 1 and 2 on DVD, so I watched it a lot, but it's been many years, yeah.
Yeah, my favorite thing about the original Spider-Man trilogy is Sam Raimi, the director. We were watching a clip of him behind the scenes where he talks about basically he had an understanding of the fact that when you put a grown-up in a costume, like a superhero costume, you get the kids' attention for free, right? Like, they're going to be amazed by that person no matter who it is, right? And so he said, like, he felt like he had an obligation as a director that if he was going to get the youth's attention for free, that's a huge responsibility, right? Like, with great power comes great responsibility. He felt that same responsibility towards his audience, that he needed to write a story that dealt with values and morality and self-sacrifice and all of these things that in modern superhero movies you don't see anymore. A lot of the same producers that were on the original Spider-Man trilogy, guys like Avi Arad, people don't know about him, but even guys like Kevin Feige, I believe, was involved at some point in that trilogy all the way back then. And I think those guys, unlike Sam Raimi, have that same understanding that if you just put a guy in a costume, it'll sell tickets. But they're not as careful with that as Sam Raimi was back then. Back then it was like, you know, we could just release this movie and we'll make our money no matter what. But they wanted to put some values in it. And now it's like, whatever, we're making our money. Just write another story, crank it out, let's move on. We got 5 more we got to do.
Yeah, and it paid off. We know that at that time when it was released in 2002, and then the sequel came out in 2004, but like by then it was like the best-selling like trilogy. Like, just like, it broke records, you know?
Yeah, it had the highest grossing opening weekend of any film up to that point. And I think at the time, I want to say it was the highest grossing film until Passion of the Christ came out. Or was it, what was it? Something overtook it. But when it came out, it was like the highest grossing film.
I think Avatar took
it. That makes more sense.
But, I mean, they really put a lot of care in that work, and because of its success, I think it really propelled Marvel studios. Like, well, okay, Sony produced the movie, but it did actually like pave this way forward to actually making like superhero movies. Like, it built up this momentum about that.
Yeah.
And I think. My alarm went
Nat,
off.
You didn't silence your phone.
Well, that alarm was meant to tell me that I meant to leave soon, because. But what I liked about Spider-Man 2 was about, you know, one, okay, you didn't do a lot of commentary in the movie, Josh, but valid a lot of times, but it's one of those movies where it really there's a lot of good values in it. You know, I'm a Christian, you're a Christian, and I think we can appreciate that. It's pretty clean for a superhero movie, and like in Spider-Man 2, like the scene was amazing where it just like shows how Peter Parker, like it showed how in the beginning it was building up how being Spider-Man was not helping his life, you know.
Right.
MJ goes off with another guy, this astronaut dude, you know, because he said no to her in the first movie because he realized him being a superhero was going to put her in danger, and that pushed her into the arms of another guy. Harry hated him because he was angry at Spider-Man for quote unquote killing his father, and Peter quote unquote knows Spider-Man, and he's basically saying, you're hiding him from me.
Yeah.
You know, he basically gets fired from his job because he doesn't want to take photos. Spider-Man for a boss. He's working for a boss that hates
Spider-Man.
Who he is, really.
Yeah, he hates him. He just doesn't know it. Yeah.
So like, there's so much going on, and he just like, you know what? I don't want to be Spider-Man anymore. I'm walking away from it. And they show that emotional scene where he's just like imagining himself with Uncle Ben again, and Uncle Ben saying, "Great power comes great responsibility," and he's like, "No, I don't want that."
Mm-hmm.
And he seems happy for a while, but then he realizes that he's been given a gift,
Mm-hmm.
and that gift is supposed to be used to help mankind, and
Yeah.
he uses, and when he learns that lessons, he applies that to what Doc Ock, because Doc Ock said that before he became a villain,
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting, because it deals with this like sacrificial attitude that superheroes might have,
Right.
because what separates a superhero from a villain? Because if you notice how people become villains in the comic books and how people become supervillains is they both come from a tragic experience.
Mm-hmm.
But the choices that made them good or evil.
Right.
One side decides to use what they experienced to be bitter against the world and seek revenge in it. The other one wants to see the best in mankind despite what has happened to them and be the best person they can be.
Yeah, and I love that because like we were talking about like Christian values, especially for me and you, like pursuing a life in ministry. Like I think that's very relatable to us. Of like that like where Spider-Man, he gets tired of being Spider-Man because it's like it costs something to do the right thing, right? And so I think I find myself doing the same thing where it's like I don't want to do this today, and I just like for a day, and a day turns into a week. I'm just like, I deserve a break. I've been doing everything for everybody else. I just need to take care of me. I need to take care of number one, and I just need a break. And that movie is pretty hard on secular psychology because there's a scene where Peter Parker goes to meet with a doctor. He goes for a physical because obviously he's lost his powers. He's trying to figure out, what's going on with him. And the doctor starts getting into psychology. He's like, maybe this isn't a physical problem. Maybe this is a mental problem. And he's like, have you been sleeping well? And he tells him about this dream he had where he treats it as if it's a dream. He says like, I'm in my dream, I'm Spider-Man, but I'm losing my powers. And he says like, who is this guy? Like, what do you think of yourself? Like, why are you climbing these walls? Maybe you're not supposed to be Spider-Man. And like, basically what the doctor's argument boils down to is if what you're doing with your life isn't making you happy, then you should just stop doing it and pursue whatever's going to make you happy. And that's horrible advice because your life isn't about your own personal happiness. Like, your own personal happiness is a lie. It's fleeting. You might catch it temporarily, but it'll be gone the next day. Like, real life is about, being a functioning member of society, being a husband, being a father or a wife, a daughter, a good friend. Your life is not about what other people can do for you or your own personal happiness. Your life is about... well, first of all, from the Christian perspective, how can I honor God? But then how can I love and care for and protect the people around me?
Yeah, it's a constant reminder that your life is not your own. We live in this hyper-individualistic society that our actions are to the benefit of ourselves, and they're only to ourselves and doesn't affect other people. Wrong. Everything we do, everything we say and we act upon affects other people. And your identity is not just I am Nat. I belong to a family, I belong to a community, I belong to a country, and I also owe my whole existence to God,
right?
Not to myself,
right?
To something higher than that.
Well, and that's the stuff. It's important because that's what gets put on a tombstone, right? Whenever someone dies, you see beloved husband, father, brother. You don't see head of corporate office, right? Like, no one puts that on a tombstone because everyone understands like that's miserable.
And let's just talk about Aunt May.
Oh my gosh,
this
Aunt
is the
May.
best Aunt May compared to the Amazing Spider-Man, compared to the new Spider-Man, Tom Holland. Also, I'm just gonna hot take right here. I'm gonna say Aunt May, when she uses her umbrella to hit Doc Ock, contributed more than all the other Aunt Mays.
It's true. She did. And then
her prayers alone in the movie contributed more.
Right, that's crazy. The fact that she says like the Lord's Prayer in the first movie and then she prays multiple times throughout the trilogy. And just that, the idea of like older women in society or older men in society like praying for her nephew, like I think it really shows like how much, you can actually use the 3 different Spider-Mans to look at just how much culture has declined in the past 2 decades, because it's really gotten like we're going from Aunt May being a pillar in Peter's life, like a source of stability and morality and all this stuff, and the new one it's Marissa Tomei, and she's like having a summer fling with Happy Hogan. She's basically sleeping around with him, but like leading him on, and he thinks that he has a future with her, and she thought she had made it clear that they were just having sex, and like literally polar opposites, and yet Marissa Tomei is now supposed to be like the person we look up to as like a model of society in Peter's life.
Yeah, that's not the Aunt May that I know. But you remember the scene better than me. When Aunt May was packing up her stuff, what did she say to Peter?
Packing up her stuff? Oh, you're talking about the scene in the backyard?
Yes.
Well, first of all, that's a huge scene because that's where she forgives him for basically he wasn't responsible for Uncle Ben's death, but he basically, he should have taken action and he didn't, and that's why Uncle Ben is dead. And so she forgives him that, and she tells him that she's proud of him for telling her the truth, because he didn't have to tell her the truth. He could have kept that secret, but he comes to her and then he tells her that, and then basically she starts asking him. It's kind of implied that she knows he's Spider-Man. She just never says it. And so, but then she goes, she basically says like she believes there's a hero in all of us, right? That keeps us brave, that keeps us honest, that tells us to hold on a moment longer. And I think that's interesting. It definitely gets into some dicey. I mean, if you want to talk about it, it gets into some dicey theological stuff, right? Because Sam Raimi's kind of making the point that, I don't think he's making the point that everyone is inherently good, but I think he's making the point that everyone has the potential to be good, right? There's not good people and bad people. Obviously, we know from a Christian perspective, everyone starts out bad, but everyone has the potential to, accept Christ and then do good. And so, yeah, it's just interesting the way he phrased that, because I mean, he's not a Christian. He's Jewish, but he's secular. So it's interesting. They're touching on stuff they don't quite understand, but they're close.
Yes. Okay, but like, do you remember anything like what is it that she says? Do you remember that kind of like makes it like? Because it definitely made an impact on Peter Parker. She chose to forgive him.
Are you talking about a specific line?
I don't remember.
I can't quote it exactly. I mean, I was paraphrasing, but she talks about. I mean, I think at that point it's basically just talking about. I think she says like we have to. There's the line in there that's said multiple times, like we have to go steady and give up the things that we want the most. I think that's the part, because then there's the scene after that where I pointed out to you, like he stands on a roof and he literally says, "Strong focus on what I want," and then he literally turns his back and like runs the opposite direction and like jumps off a building.
Yeah.
And the idea is like, he's taking that, like it's meant to symbolize taking that selfishness of that negativity of just dwelling on yourself and all the things that you want and living for self, and literally doing a 180 and running away from that.
It's that sacrificial, like, characteristic is what we admire in superheroes. Because when he rescues Mary Jane, he goes, and now he reveals Spider-Man, Peter Parker, Spider-Man. He goes, and this is why we can't be together, because Spider-Man's always going to have enemies and all that. Yeah. She chooses at the end to not get married to that guy and goes to him. But it's just something like amazing about that, no pun intended, because if you go to the Amazing Spider-Man, Peter Parker is not really like the comics. He skates and all that. He plays basketball. Right. He's still not cool, if you ask me. But he disrespects Gwen Stacy's father, who says, "Keep her out of this." Yeah, he still has a fling with her and the whole relationship behind the scenes, and he feels kind of guilty about that. But compare that to Spider-Man, where he basically is like, "No, this is part and parcel of who I am. I'm not gonna turn away what has been given to me, but I'm willing to give up what I want the most, in order to serve back, to be the best person I can be." And of course, Hollywood has a good ending. She ends up with him and all that. But it's just like, that's something that's admirable. And it's like...
Right. Well, and that's something that I love about... And I want to make this point because everyone likes to make the criticism that the character Mary Jane in the original is like... she's just, oh, like she's just an object. Like back then women in movies were just objects. And then Emma Stone in The Amazing Spider-Man and what's her name? Zendaya and Tom Holland, like they're empowering. Like those are new, modern, empowering roles that were written for modern women, and we've moved past this male objectification of women. Mary Jane is a great character because, and the way that Peter treats her is great because when she doesn't know that he's Spider-Man, that's why he won't date her, because he can't tell her that he's Spider-Man, and he's not going to date her and put her in a situation where she's in danger and she's not even aware of the fact that she's in danger. But then once she finds out that he's Spider-Man, then it becomes her choice. And she gets to choose, okay, she says at the end of the movie, she says, "Isn't it time someone saved your life?" And she's choosing, knowingly putting herself in danger that his enemies could exploit her and use her to get at him. But she chooses to put herself in that situation anyway because she doesn't want him to have to go through life alone. And that's beautiful. So her character as well shows self-sacrifice.
And she chooses to be with him, like, as Peter Parker, not Spider-Man.
Not as Spider-Man. That's right.
That's true. Yeah. So that's something right there, because she wanted to be with him, and he, in the first movie, and he pushes her away.
Yep.
And then, he has this immature period where he goes, "I want Mary Jane back," but now she's with this other guy.
Yep.
And she's, and it's that whole, like, debacle. It's like, okay, fine, I'm not going to be Spider-Man anymore because, clearly nothing's working out in my life. But he remembers, like, what, like, this amazing gift that he's been used. And, and she wants to be with them, and it shows that.
Yeah, well, and it brings up the point too, right? Because so Gwen Stacy in The Amazing Spider-Man, right? She likes Peter Parker as well, but Peter Parker is very different in The Amazing Spider-Man. Before he's even, bitten by the spider and has superpowers and all that, she's just infatuated with the idea of this guy, because he's tall, he's handsome, he's intelligent, he's at the top of his class, he's a photographer, he's a skater, he stands up to bullies, like, and he's just this cool dude. But then if you look at Peter Parker, the whole point in the first Spider-Man movie is that Mary Jane almost doesn't notice him because he's a quiet figure in the background of her life that's always been encouraging her. And you see all throughout the first Spider-Man, she's going for those more attractive, those more impressive guys, the guys that have more money, because she believes that they're going to be her escape from her abusive childhood, her abusive past. She thinks if she can get with a guy who's strong enough and rich enough to protect her, like Harry Osborn, right? She goes for him because he's rich as well. And she thinks that's going to be her escape from the slums, like the borough. And and then she realizes, she talks about it at the grave scene at the end of the movie. She says, when she was about to die, she was thinking about one man, and it wasn't who she thought it'd be. It wasn't Spider-Man, right? It wasn't him and his impressiveness and his power. It wasn't Harry Osborn. It wasn't Flash Thompson. She was thinking about Peter. And she was remembering that he always encouraged her to just be the person, wouldn't have said it this way, but we would say just be the person that God created her to be. He just encouraged her, and he never looked down on her, and he never forced himself on her. And she realized that he was the only guy in her life that did that, and that eventually won her over, and that shows her growth as well, that she chose virtue over strength.
Yeah. Well, we gotta end it right now, but if anyone disagrees with us, feel free.
We don't care. I personally don't care.
But feel free
You're allowed to be
opinion.
wrong. No, I'm just
feel
kidding.
free to give your opinion, but please. If your whole thing was just because you think Andrew Garfield's better looking and all that, can you give something more substance than that? Just, if you disagree, I appreciate that part. If you want to say just because he's better looking, fine. Thank you for being honest.
Yeah, just be honest. That's all we ask.
But I would love to at least hear, like, a good breakdown. We don't need to be a 15-minute breakdown like what we just did, but, it'd be good to hear.
Yeah, someone can make a case for the morality in The Amazing Spider-Man and how there's biblical virtue in there, like, I'm all for it, but I don't see it.
Yeah, and obviously it's like, we know Spider-Man's not a Christian movie, but I'm saying that as guys who happen to be Christian, we can appreciate, like, the message of the movie.
Yeah, like C.S. Lewis says, baptizing mythology.
Anyway, I got to go now, but it's been great. We're gonna try and record more episodes.
We will.
Especially you're just ramping that out on Christmas. I know a lot of people have long drives, and
It's
you
true.
know they got something to listen to now. You know,
Mhm.
so yeah. Anyway, that's all for today's episode. Peace out.